The rain was coming down hard that November night, the kind of rain that soaks through your jacket in seconds and makes you want to run for cover. Robert Johnson pulled his coat tighter as he walked down the empty street. His work boots splashed through puddles, and the streetlights made everything look blurry and strange. Robert had just finished another long day fixing pipes and clearing drains at the apartment complex where he worked. At 45 years old, he was used to working late. These days, work was all he had. Ever since his wife passed away 3 years ago, coming home to his empty apartment felt harder than staying busy with repairs and maintenance. The neighborhood wasn't the best part of town, but Robert had lived there for over 10 years. He knew every corner, every shortcut, and every sound. That's why when he heard something different that night, he stopped walking. Over the sound of rain hitting the pavement, he could hear something else. Something that made his heart skip. A beat crying, soft, scared crying, coming from somewhere nearby. Robert looked around the empty street. Most of the shops were closed, their metal gates pulled down for the night. The only light came from a flickering street lamp that made shadows dance on the wet ground. He stood still, listening carefully. There it was again. The sound was coming from behind the old grocery store that had been empty for months. He walked slowly toward the sound, his footsteps echoing in the quiet night. As he got closer, the crying became clearer. It wasn't just one voice, it was two. Two young voices, scared and shivering, behind a large dumpster tucked into a small space between the building and a chain-link fence. Robert found them. Two little girls, maybe 6 and 8 years old, huddled together like frightened kittens. Their clothes were soaked through, and they were shaking from both cold and fear. The older girl had her arms wrapped around the younger one, trying to protect her from the rain. When she saw Robert, she pulled her sister closer and stared at him with wide, frightened eyes. Both girls had the same dark curly hair, now wet and tangled. Their clothes looked like they hadn't been changed in days. Robert's heart broke seeing them like this. He had never been around children much. He and his wife had tried to have kids for years, but it never happened. Now, looking at these two scared little girls, he felt something wake up inside him that he thought had died with his wife. "Hey there," he said softly, crouching down so he wouldn't seem so tall and scary. "Are you girls okay?" The older girl didn't answer, but she didn't back away either. She just kept staring at him with those big eyes like she was trying to figure out if he was safe or dangerous. "I'm Robert," he said, keeping his voice gentle. "What are your names?" Still no answer. The younger girl was crying quietly, and Robert could see both of them shivering. They needed help, and they needed it now. "Listen," Robert said, "it's really cold out here, and you're both soaked. I live just around the corner. Why don't you come with me where it's warm and dry?" The older girl finally spoke, her voice barely. A whisper, "We're not supposed to go with strangers." Robert nodded. "That's smart. Your parents taught you well. Where are your parents now?" The question made the younger girl cry harder. The older one's face crumpled, and Robert knew something was very wrong. "She left us," the older girl whispered. "Mama left us here and said she'd come back, but that was a long time ago." Robert felt anger rise in his chest. How could anyone leave children like this? But he pushed the anger down. These girls needed help, not his emotions. "How long have you been out here?" he asked. "I don't know," the girl said. Maybe since it got cold. We've been sleeping in different places. Sometimes people give us food, but mostly they tell us to go away." Robert's mind was racing. These children had been living on the streets. For weeks, maybe longer, they were hungry, cold, and scared. Every instinct he had was telling him to help them. "Look," he said, "I know you don't know me, but I promise I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to get you somewhere warm and give you something to eat. After that, we can figure out what to do next." "Okay." The older girl looked at her little sister, who was still shivering violently. Robert could see her making a decision that no 8-year-old should have to make. "Okay," she whispered. Robert took off his jacket and wrapped it around both girls. It was way too big for them, but it would help keep them warm. Then he picked up the younger girl, who was too tired and cold to walk. The older girl walked beside him, staying close but still ready to run if she needed to. The walk to Robert's apartment took only 5 minutes, but it felt like an hour. His mind was spinning with questions. What was he doing? He didn't know anything about taking care of children. What if someone saw him with these girls and got the wrong idea? What if their mother came back looking for them? But every time he looked down at the little girl in his arms, or at the older one walking bravely beside him despite being scared, he knew he couldn't just leave them on the street. Robert's apartment was small but clean. He had been living alone there since his wife died, and it showed. There were no toys, no bright colors, nothing that said children lived there. But it was warm and dry, and right now that's what mattered. He set the younger girl down gently and turned on all the lights. Both girls stood in his living room, still wearing his wet jacket, looking around like they couldn't believe they were inside somewhere safe. First things first, Robert said. Let's get you out of those wet clothes. He found some of his old t-shirts that would work as nightgowns for now. While the girls changed in his bedroom, he made hot chocolate and found some crackers and peanut butter. It wasn't much, but it was food dog when they came back out. Wearing his oversized shirts and looking incredibly small, Robert's heart did something funny. These weren't just two random children anymore. They were two little people who needed him. And somehow, that felt like the most important thing in the world. They ate quietly, not talking much, but clearly hungry. Robert watched them and wondered what they had been eating, if anything, while they were on the streets. After they finished, the older girl finally told him their names. The little one was Lucy and she was Anna. She also told him what had happened. Their mother had been acting strange for weeks, leaving them alone for days at a time. One day, she brought them to the spot behind the grocery store and told them to wait there. She said she would be back in a few hours. That was over a month ago. As Anna told the story, Robert felt his anger return, but he also felt something else. A sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. That night, he let the girls sleep in his bed while he took the couch. As he lay there, in the dark, listening to their quiet breathing from the next room, Robert knew his life had just changed completely. Tomorrow, he would call social services. He would try to find their mother. He would do whatever needed to be done, but tonight, two little girls were safe and warm. And somehow, for the first time in 3 years, Robert didn't feel alone. The next morning came too fast for Robert. He woke up on his couch with a stiff neck and the sound of quiet voices coming from his bedroom. For a moment, he forgot where he was and why his back hurt so much. Then it all came rushing back. The rain, the crying. Two little girls who needed help. He sat up slowly and listened. Anna and Lucy were whispering to each other, probably wondering what would happen to them now. Robert had been wondering the same thing since he'd found them. He knew he had to call someone, but he also knew that once he did, everything would change. After making some breakfast, Robert sat down with the girls at his small kitchen table. They ate pancakes quietly, still wearing his old t-shirts. In the daylight, he could see just how thin they were. Their cheeks were hollow, and their eyes looked too big for their faces. "Girls," Robert said gently, "I need to make some phone calls today. There are people whose job it is to help children who don't have anywhere to go. They need to know about you." "Anna," the older girl, stopped eating. "Are you going to send us away?" The question hit Robert harder than he expected. "I don't know what's going to happen," he said honestly. "But I promise I'll do everything I can to make sure you're safe." That afternoon, Robert called social services. The woman who answered sounded tired and stressed. When he explained the situation, she sighed deeply. "Mr. Johnson, we appreciate you helping these children, but we're completely overwhelmed right now. We have more kids than we have places to put them." "What does that mean?" Robert asked. "It means the girls will probably have to go to temporary emergency care first. And honestly, we might not be able to keep them together. We have one spot at a facility across town, and another one about an hour away." Robert felt his stomach drop. He looked through his kitchen doorway at Anna and Lucy, who were sitting on his couch watching cartoons. Anna had her arm around her. Little sister, just like she had the night before in the rain? They can't be separated, Robert said. They only have each other. I understand, Mr. Johnson, but we work with what we have. A social worker will be there tomorrow morning to pick them up. After he hung up, Robert sat at his kitchen table for a long time. He thought about his wife and how she would have handled this. She always knew what to do when things got complicated. She would have had a plan that evening while the girls watched TV. Robert called his sister Linda. She lived 2 states away, but they talked every few weeks. When he told her what had happened, she was quiet for a long time. Robert, she finally said, what are you thinking? You don't know anything about raising kids? I know, he said. But Linda, you should see them. They're so scared and they've been through so much. The social worker wants to split them up. That's not your problem to solve, Linda said, but her voice was softer now. Maybe it is, Robert said. Maybe this is why I found them. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. The next morning, Mrs. Patterson from Social Services arrived at Robert's apartment. She was a kind-looking woman in her 50s with graying hair and tired eyes. She sat at Robert's table while Anna and Lucy stayed in the living room, clearly nervous about what was happening. Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Patterson said, you did the right thing calling us. These girls need proper care and placement. About that, Robert said, I've been thinking. What would I need to do to keep them here? Temporarily, I mean. Until you find them a permanent home, Mrs. Patterson looked surprised. You want to foster them? If that's what it takes to keep them together, yes. She studied his face carefully. Mr. Johnson, fostering isn't something you just decide to do overnight. There are background checks, home inspections, training classes. The process usually takes months. But there are emergency situations, right? Times when you have to place kids quickly? Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly. Yes, but even emergency placements require some basic checks. And honestly, single men don't usually... She stopped herself. Don't usually what? It's not that you can't do it, she said quickly. It's just that most people who foster are couples or women. The system is set up that way. Robert felt frustration rising in his chest. So because I'm a single man, I can't help these girls? I didn't say that. But you have to understand, we have to be careful. These children have been through trauma. They need stability. They need each other, Robert said. Firmly. And right now, I'm the only person offering to keep them together. Mrs. Patterson looked through the doorway at Anna and Lucy. The older girl was reading a picture book to her sister, their heads close together. Something in the social worker's expression softened. Tell me about yourself, Mr. Johnson, your job. Your background. Help me understand why you want to do this. For the next hour, Robert told Mrs. Patterson about his life. His job as a maintenance worker, his marriage, losing his wife to cancer. He talked about the empty apartment and the loneliness that followed him everywhere. He told her about finding the girls in the rain and how something inside him had woken up when he saw them. I'm not saying I know how to be a parent, Robert said, but I know how to care about people. I know how to work hard and put someone else's needs first. And I know these girls deserve better than being split up and put in different places with strangers. Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long time, writing notes on her clipboard. Finally, she looked up at Robert. The emergency placement process is complicated, she said. I'd need to do a basic background check today, and someone would have to inspect your apartment. You'd need to start parenting classes immediately. And this would only be temporary, probably a few months while we look for a permanent family. I understand, Robert said. There's something else, Mrs. Patterson continued. These girls have been through significant trauma. They'll need counseling, medical checkups, probably special attention at school. Are you prepared for that? Robert thought about his quiet life, his simple routine of work and home. Then he looked at Anna and Lucy again. Lucy was laughing at something in the book, and Anna was smiling. It was the first time he'd seen either of them really smile. I'll learn, he said. Whatever they need, I'll figure it out. Mrs. Patterson made several phone calls from Robert's kitchen. She spoke in low voices about background checks and emergency placements and supervisor approvals. While she worked, Robert sat with the girls on his couch. "What's happening?" Anna asked quietly. "I'm trying to make it so you can stay here for a while," Robert said. "Would you like that?" Both girls nodded. Lucy reached over and took Robert's hand with her small one. "Will we have to go to school?" Anna asked. "Yes, you'll need to go to school. I like school," Anna said. "Lucy's never been, but I can help her." Robert felt his heart squeeze. This 8-year-old girl had been taking care of her little sister for who knows how long. She shouldn't have had to grow up so fast. After 2 more hours of phone calls and paperwork, Mrs. Patterson finally closed her clipboard. "Mr. Johnson," she said, "you've been approved for emergency foster placement. It's temporary and there will be regular check-ins and evaluations, but for now the girls can stay with you." Robert felt relief wash over him like warm water. He looked at Anna and Lucy, who had been listening from the couch. "We can stay?" Anna asked. "You can stay," Robert said. That night, as Robert lay on his couch again, he listened to the quiet sounds of the girls settling into sleep in his bedroom. He thought about everything that had changed in just 2 days. His simple, lonely life was gone. In its place was something scarier but also more meaningful than anything he'd experienced since his wife died. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew he was going to figure it out. These 2 little girls needed him, and maybe he was starting to realize he needed them too. 6 months had passed since that rainy night when Robert found Anna and Lucy behind the dumpster. What started as a temporary emergency placement had slowly turned into something much more permanent. The adoption papers were finally signed, and Robert Johnson was now officially the father of 2 little girls, but official papers were one thing. Learning how to actually be a dad was something completely different. The first few weeks had been the hardest. Robert quickly discovered that taking care of children was nothing like he'd imagined. There were so many things he'd never thought about, like how Anna needed her hair braided for school, but Robert had no idea how to braid hair. He spent an entire Sunday morning watching videos on his phone, practicing with rope until his fingers could manage the simple pattern. Then there was the crying. Lucy still had nightmares about their mother leaving them. She would wake up in the middle of the night, screaming and confused. Robert would sit on the edge of the bed, holding her small, shaking body until she calmed down. He learned that a soft voice and gentle back rubs worked better than trying to explain that everything was okay. School had been another challenge. Anna was smart, but she had missed so much time living on the streets that she was behind in almost every subject. Lucy had never been to school at all. Robert found himself sitting at his kitchen table every evening, helping with homework he barely understood himself. "I don't get it," Anna would say, frustrated with her math problems. "Let's figure it out together," Robert would answer. Even when he was just as confused as she was, the neighbors had been watching this transformation with curiosity and sometimes concern, who lived next door, had offered to help with the girl's hair when she noticed Robert's clumsy attempts at ponytails. She taught him how to use hair ties and bobby pins, laughing gently at his serious concentration. "You're doing good," she told him one afternoon after showing him how to make Lucy's curls look neat for school. "Those girls are lucky to have you." Robert wasn't always sure about that. There were days when he felt completely lost, like the time Anna got sick at school and he panicked, rushing her to the emergency room for what turned out to be a simple stomach bug. Or when Lucy asked him about periods and growing up, and he realized there were conversations he was completely unprepared for. Money was tight. Robert had always lived simply, but now he had 2 growing children to feed and clothe. He picked up weekend work fixing appliances for neighbors. He learned to shop sales and clip coupons. His small apartment felt even smaller with 3 people living in it, but somehow it felt more like home than it had in years. The biggest change came when Robert realized he needed to convert his home office into a proper bedroom for the girls. They had been sleeping in his bed while he took the couch, but Mrs. Patterson had made it clear during one of her visits that this arrangement needed to change. Robert spent his savings on bunk beds and bright pink paint. He had never painted a room before, and his first attempt looked terrible. Anna and Lucy giggled as they helped him put on a second coat, getting more paint on themselves than on the walls. It's perfect, Anna declared when they finished. Even though Robert could see all the uneven spots and drip marks, Lucy nodded seriously. It's the most beautiful room ever. Looking at their faces, covered in pink paint and glowing with happiness, Robert felt something he hadn't experienced since his wife died. Pure joy. The parenting classes Mrs. Patterson had required turned out to be more helpful than Robert expected. He met other single parents, including a few other men who were raising children alone. Hearing their stories made him feel less like he was making everything up as he went along. The first year is survival mode, said David, a man who was raising his nephew. You just do whatever works and try not to mess them up too badly? When does it get easier? Robert asked. It doesn't get easier, laughed Patricia, a grandmother raising her 3 grandchildren. It gets different. But it also gets more rewarding, she was right. As the months passed, Robert started to see changes in both girls that made all the struggles worth it. Anna, who had been quiet and fearful, began to laugh more often. She made friends at school and started bringing home artwork to hang on the refrigerator. Lucy, who had barely spoken when Robert first found them, became a chatterbox who asked endless questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? She would ask during their walks to the park. Why do flowers smell good? Why do you have hair in your nose? Robert found himself learning right along with them, looking up answers to questions he'd never thought to ask. The hardest part was dealing with their past. Both girls still struggled with trust and abandonment fears. Anna would sometimes hoard food in her backpack, afraid there wouldn't be enough later. Lucy would panic if Robert was even a few minutes late picking them up from school. I'm not going anywhere, Robert would tell them over and over. This is your home now. I'm your dad, and I'm staying right here. Slowly, they began to believe him. The day the adoption was finalized was one Robert would never forget. He had expected it to feel different somehow, more official. Instead, it felt like a confirmation of something that had already been true for months. The judge asked Anna and Lucy if they wanted Robert to be their father, and both girls said yes so loudly that everyone in the courtroom laughed. Afterwards, they went out for ice cream to celebrate. Lucy got chocolate all over her face, and Anna carefully saved half of hers for later, a habit she still hadn't broken. So what do we call you now? Anna asked as they walked home. Robert had been wondering about this. What would you like to call me? Dad, Lucy said immediately. Anna nodded. Dad? It was the first time they had called him that, and Robert had to stop walking for a moment to collect himself. That night, as he tucked them into their bunk beds in their pink room, Lucy looked up at him with serious eyes. Dad, she said, testing out the word, are you happy that we found you? Robert smiled, thinking about his old life of empty evenings and quiet dinners alone. Lucy, finding you and Anna was the best thing that ever happened to me, even though we're a lot of work? Anna asked from the top bunk. Especially because you're a lot of work, Robert said, making them both giggle. As he turned off their light and headed back to his living room, Robert reflected on how much his life had changed. His small apartment was Messier now, full of toys and books and children's clothes. His bank account was smaller, but his heart felt bigger. He was tired most of the time, worried about doing things right, and constantly learning new things, but he was also happier than he'd been in years. Every morning he woke up with purpose. Every evening he came home to 2 little girls who were excited to see him. Every day brought new challenges, but also new moments of joy and discovery. Robert had never planned to become a father, especially not to 2 girls who had been abandoned and hurt. But looking back, he couldn't imagine his life any other way. He had given Anna and Lucy a home and a family, but in return they had given him something even more valuable. They had given him a reason to hope again, a reason to build something beautiful out of what had seemed like a broken life. 3 years after that rainy night, Robert Johnson wasn't just a lonely maintenance worker anymore. He was a dad. And he was exactly where he belonged. The years flew by faster than Robert could have imagined. One day he was teaching Lucy how to tie her shoes, and the next day she was graduating from high school with honors. Anna had grown into a confident young woman who dreamed of becoming a doctor, while Lucy had fallen in love with math and science. Talking constantly about engineering, Robert was now 58 years old, and his back hurt more than it used to. The long days of maintenance work were getting harder, but he never complained. Every ache and pain was worth it when he saw what his daughters had accomplished. Both girls had earned scholarships to college. Anna was accepted into a pre-med program 3 hours away, while Lucy got into an engineering school in another state. Robert was incredibly proud, but as their graduation day approached, he felt something else growing in his chest. Fear. For 12 years, his life had revolved around these two girls. Every decision he made was based on what was best for them. Every dollar he earned went toward their needs. Every evening was spent helping with homework or listening to their stories about school. Now they were leaving, and Robert wasn't sure who he was supposed to be without them. The summer before they left for college was bittersweet. Robert wanted to spend every moment with his daughters, but he also knew they needed to prepare for their independence. Anna worked part-time at a medical office to gain experience. Lucy took advanced math courses at the community college. Both girls were busy with friends and activities. Getting ready for the next chapter of their lives, Robert tried to stay positive, but the neighbors could see the sadness in his eyes. Mrs. Chun, who had become like family over the years, often invited him for dinner when the girls were out. "You did an amazing job raising them," she told him one evening as they sat on her porch. "They're going to do great things." "I know," Robert said, staring at his apartment window. "That's what I wanted for them. I just didn't think about what would happen after." "Have you told them how you're feeling?" Robert shook his head. "They're excited about college. I don't want to make them feel guilty for growing up." The last month before they left was the hardest. Robert found himself working extra hours, partly because he needed the money for their college expenses, but mostly because being home reminded him that soon it would be empty again. Anna noticed first. She found him one evening sitting at the kitchen table, staring at college bills and looking overwhelmed. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked, sitting down beside him. "Just tired," Robert said, trying to smile. "Don't worry about me," but Anna had inherited her father's stubborn streak. "We're worried about you. Lucy and I have been talking." "About what?" "About how hard this must be for you. We're leaving, and you'll be alone again." Robert looked at his daughter's concerned face and felt his heart squeeze. Even now, about to start her own life, she was still thinking about taking care of him. "Anna, you and Lucy don't need to worry about me. You need to focus on your studies and your future." "But you're our family," Anna said. "We'll always worry about you." The moving day came too quickly. Robert had borrowed a friend's truck to drive Anna to her college. Lucy would leave the following week. As they loaded Anna's belongings into the truck, Robert was amazed at how much stuff she had accumulated over the years. Books, clothes, photos, the pink lamp from her childhood room. The drive to Anna's college was quiet. Both of them knew this was a big moment, but neither knew what to say. When they arrived at her dorm, Robert helped carry her things to her room. Her roommate seemed nice, and Anna was clearly excited despite being nervous. "Call me if you need anything," Robert told her as he prepared to leave. "I will, Dad, and you call me too, okay? Even if it's just to talk." Robert hugged his daughter, trying to memorize the moment. "I'm so proud of you, Anna. Your mother would be proud too." It was the first time in years that Robert had mentioned his wife. Anna's eyes filled with tears. "I love you, Dad. I love you too." The drive home felt endless. Robert's truck had never seemed so quiet. When he walked into his apartment, Anna's absence hit him like a physical blow. Her room looked strange with half the furniture gone and empty spaces on the walls where her posters had been. Lucy tried to cheer him up that week, but Robert could see she was struggling too. Losing her sister was hard, even though she knew it was temporary. "Are you scared?" Robert asked her one evening as they ate dinner together. "A little," Lucy admitted. "Anna and I have never been apart, and I'm worried about leaving you alone." "Don't worry about me," Robert said automatically. "Dad, stop saying that. We're family." "Of course we worry about each other." The day Lucy left was even harder than Anna's departure. Maybe because Robert knew this time he really would be alone. Lucy cried as they said goodbye, and Robert had to work hard not to cry too. "Promise me you'll take care of yourself," Lucy said, hugging him tight. "Promise me you'll focus on your studies and not worry about your old dad." "I can't promise that," Lucy said, laughing through her tears. The apartment felt impossibly quiet after Lucy left. Robert walked through the rooms, looking at the traces of his daughter's lives. Photos on the refrigerator, books on shelves, the pink walls in their old bedroom that he had never bothered to repaint. He tried to get back into his old routines, but everything felt different. Cooking dinner for one person seemed pointless. Watching TV alone reminded him of how it used to be before the girls came. He started working longer hours again, anything to avoid the empty apartment. The girls called regularly, but Robert could hear how busy they were. Anna talked about her classes and new friends. Lucy was excited about her professors and the engineering projects she was working on. Robert was happy for them, but their conversations made him feel more alone than ever. Mrs. Cheung kept inviting him for dinner, and other neighbors checked on him regularly. But Robert felt like he was going through the motions of living rather than actually living. 3 months after Lucy left, Robert got a call that changed everything. It was Anna, and she sounded upset. "Dad, we need to talk," she said. "Lucy and I've been discussing something, and we think you need to hear this." Robert's heart started racing. "Is everything okay? Are you both safe?" "We're fine, Dad, but you're not." "What do you mean?" "We can hear it in your voice when we call. Mrs. Chun told us you're working too much and not taking care of yourself. You sound sad all the time." Robert sat down heavily in his chair. "I'm adjusting. It takes time." "Dad, listen to me. Lucy and I want you to know something. Everything good in our lives started the night you found us in the rain. You didn't just save us from the streets. You taught us what family means. You showed us what love looks like." Robert felt tears starting to form in his eyes. "We're not calling to feel sorry for you," Anna continued. "We're calling to remind you that being our dad is the most important thing you've ever done. And it's not over just because we're in college. But you have your own lives now. Yes, we do. Lives that you made possible. And we want you to have a life too, a life you can be proud of." After they hung up, Robert sat in his quiet apartment. For a long time, he thought about what Anna had said and realized she was right. He had spent so many years focused on raising his daughters that he had forgotten how to live for himself. It was time to figure out what came next. 15 years had passed since that rainy night when Robert found 2 scared little girls behind a dumpster. Now, at 63 years old, he was still working maintenance, though his body reminded him daily that retirement wasn't far away. His hair had gone completely gray, and his hands were rough from decades of hard work. Anna had graduated medical school and was now Dr. Anna Johnson, working at a children's hospital 2 states away. Lucy had become an engineer, designing bridges and buildings for a company in the city. Both girls had kept his last name, something that still made Robert's heart swell with pride whenever he heard it. The phone calls came less frequently now. Anna was busy with her residency, working long hours and learning to save lives. Lucy was traveling for work, building projects that would help communities for generations. Robert understood they had their own lives, but the quiet in his apartment seemed to grow louder each year. He had tried to follow Anna's advice about building his own life. He joined a community group that helped fix things for elderly neighbors. He volunteered at the local shelter, remembering what it felt like to need help. But most evenings, he still came home to an empty apartment and wondered if he had done enough. If his daughters still thought about the man who had raised them, social media had become his window into their lives. Anna posted pictures from the hospital, looking professional in her white coat. Lucy shared photos of construction sites and engineering projects. They looked happy and successful, but Robert sometimes felt like he was watching their lives from a distance, like someone looking through a window at a party he wasn't invited to, one Tuesday morning in November. Exactly 15 years after he'd found them, Robert got a phone call that surprised him. "Dad, it's Anna. Are you free this Saturday evening?" "Of course," Robert said. though he couldn't remember the last time either daughter had asked to see him. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect. There's a community dinner at the Civic Center. They're honoring local heroes, and they specifically asked me to invite you," Robert laughed. "Local heroes? Anna, I just fix pipes and unclog drains. Just trust me, okay? Can you be there at 6? "I suppose so." "Do I need to bring anything?" "Just yourself, Dad, and maybe wear your nice shirt, the blue one Lucy bought you for Christmas." Saturday arrived, and Robert found himself standing in front of his mirror, adjusting the blue shirt. He felt silly getting dressed up for what was probably just a boring community dinner. But Anna had sounded so excited on the phone that the Civic Center was packed when Robert arrived. He recognized some faces from the neighborhood, but there were also people he'd never seen before. A woman at the registration table smiled when she saw him. "You must be Robert Johnson," she said. "We've been waiting for you." She led him to a table near the front of the room. Robert felt confused and a little uncomfortable with all the attention. As he sat down, he noticed someone setting up a camera in the corner. This seemed like a lot of fuss for a simple community dinner. The program started with the usual speeches about community service and local volunteers. Robert half listened, wondering when they could eat and go home. Then the presenter, a man Robert didn't recognize, stepped up to the microphone. "Tonight we want to tell you about a man who changed 2 lives forever, and in doing so, changed all of our lives too." Robert looked around, wondering which local hero they were talking about. 15 years ago, on a rainy November night, Robert Johnson found 2 abandoned children behind a grocery store. Instead of just calling someone else to handle the problem, he made a choice that would define the rest of his life. Robert's stomach dropped. This was about him. About Anna and Lucy, but how did all these people know their story? Rather than tell this story myself, I'd like to invite 2 very special people to share what happened next. From a side door, Anna and Lucy walked onto the small stage. Robert couldn't believe his eyes. When had they gotten here? They were supposed to be hours away, busy with their own lives. Anna took the microphone first. She looked beautiful in her professional dress, confident and poised in a way that still amazed Robert. "Most of you don't know our story," Anna began. 15 years ago, my sister and I were homeless children, scared and alone. We had been abandoned by our mother and were living on the streets, sleeping wherever we could find shelter." The room was completely quiet. Robert felt his face burning with embarrassment and pride all mixed together. "One night, during a terrible rainstorm, a man found us hiding behind a dumpster. That man was Robert Johnson." Anna gestured toward Robert's table. "He could have called the police and walked away. Instead, he took us home, fed us, and kept us safe." Lucy took the microphone next. She was crying, but her voice was strong. "What Anna isn't telling you is that this man, who had never raised children before, who was living alone and grieving his wife, decided to change his entire life for 2 scared little girls he had just met." Robert felt tears starting in his own eyes as Lucy continued. "He worked extra jobs to pay for our clothes and school supplies. He learned to braid our hair by watching videos on his phone. He sat with us through nightmares and helped us with homework he didn't understand. He gave up his comfortable, quiet life to become our father." Anna took the microphone back. "Robert Johnson didn't just give us a home, he gave us hope. He showed us what love looks like, what family means. Because of him, I'm now a doctor working to save children's lives. Because of him, Lucy is an engineer, building things that will help communities thrive." The audience began to applaud, but Anna held up her hand. "We're not done. Over the past few months, Lucy and I have been talking to people in this community. We discovered that our dad's kindness didn't end with us. He's been quietly helping neighbors for years, fixing things for free when people couldn't afford repairs, volunteering at shelters, checking on elderly neighbors." Lucy nodded. "Mrs. Chen told us about the time he spent his own money to fix her heating when she couldn't afford it." The Martinez family shared how he helped them when Mr. Martinez lost his job. Story after story of quiet kindness that our dad never mentioned to us. Robert looked around the room and saw familiar faces nodding. Mrs. Chun was crying. The Martinez family was there, smiling at him. So many people whose lives he had touched in small ways over the years. So tonight, Anna said, we want to honor our father. But we also want to do something more. Lucy pulled out an envelope from her purse. Dad, Lucy and I have been saving money for years. We wanted to do something to show you how grateful we are, and to help you the way you helped us. We've paid off your apartment, Anna announced. The mortgage is completely cleared. It's yours forever. Robert's mouth fell open. He couldn't process what he was hearing. But that's not all, Lucy continued. We've also started a scholarship fund in your name. The Robert Johnson Scholarship for Children Aging Out of Foster Care. Kids who need help transitioning to independence just like we did. The room erupted in applause. People were standing, cheering, wiping their eyes. Robert sat in shock, overwhelmed by the love and gratitude flowing toward him. Anna and Lucy came down from the stage and wrapped their arms around their father. Through his tears, Robert could hear Anna whispering in his ear, "Thank you for saving us, Dad. Thank you for showing us that family isn't about blood. It's about choosing to love someone and never giving up on them." As Robert hugged his daughters, surrounded by a community that had witnessed his quiet acts of kindness over the years, he finally understood something important. He had always thought he was just one man who happened to find two children who needed help. But the truth was bigger than that. His choice to love Anna and Lucy had created ripples that spread far beyond their small family. They had become doctors and engineers who would help thousands of people. They had learned to give back to their community because they had seen their father do the same. And now, through the scholarship they had created, Robert's kindness would continue helping children long after he was gone. Standing in that room full of love and gratitude, Robert realized that the lonely man who had found two scared girls in the rain was gone forever. In his place stood a father, a community member, and a man whose life had mattered in ways he never could have imagined.